Hello everyone, welcome to Azure Basics training series from Skynet Clouds. Today we are going to cover Azure Storage. Just a quick recap of the training series agenda. So far we have covered resource groups, VNets and virtual machines. In this session 4, we are going to cover Azure Storage. So what is Azure Storage? Azure Storage is a secure and highly available and scalable cloud storage service. So it is a storage service offered by Microsoft in the Azure Cloud Platform. So there are different types of storage services available for you to consume. That is Azure Blob Storage, Table Storage, Queue Storage, and File Storage. So these are the four types of storages available for you to use from the cloud platform. So what are blob storages? So blob storage is basically a massively scalable object store that is for text and binary data. So you can if you want a storage where you just want to go and dump some data, then you can use Azure Blob Storage. It is also generally used in where large data, where you want to store large amount of data in use cases like big data analytics and data backup, archival. So those in such cases where you simply want to store some data, or even for your static website, if you want to simply store some data, you can use Azure Blob. Azure Files, on the other hand, it is just like your on-premises shared folders. It is a managed file share service. Only difference is that you don't have to set up the entire infrastructure to support your file shares. You can go ahead and simply provision the file shares directly from the Azure portal. Next is Azure Queue. So Azure Queues, what it means is it is for messaging purpose between application components. So if application components need to talk to each other, they can use Azure Queues to send and receive those messages. Azure Tables, on the other hand, is a NoSQL storage option that you can use to store your unstructured data, or any kind of schema-less storage of data. You can leverage Azure Tables. So those are the different core storage services available. Uh, and there are two types of storage services available for you. That storage accounts available, that is general purpose and blob storage. So what is the difference between general purpose and blob storage? In a general purpose storage, once you provision it, you can create all these types of storage services there. That is blob, table, queue, whatever is the type of service that you need, you can go ahead and create it. However, in a blob storage, it supports only the storage of type blobs. As the name indicates, you can only use that for storing blob data. Okay, and there are different access tiers for blob storage and general purpose storage. General purpose storage, again, it has GP v1 and GP v2, general purpose v1 and v2. V1 is the older generation, v2 is the new generation with a lot more additional features, and one of them is the access tiers. So access tier, what does it mean? There are three access tiers: host, cool, and archive. So how do we distinguish between these three tiers? So host tier is, as the name indicates, is for accessing the data that is being accessed very frequently. Okay, that means the data that is being used day in, day out by your application, you would want to put that in the hot storage. Cold storage, on the other hand, is targeting data that is infrequently accessed, or you want to store it. It will not be accessed for at least 30 days, or it will be stored at least for 30 days. That kind of data, you can use cold storage. Archive, on the other hand, it is for rarely accessed data. So that means it should be stored at least for a minimum period of 180 days, and the kind of data that is stored in archival storage, it should be flexible with the latency requirements. So there could be high latencies in accessing that data, and the application should be fine with it. Okay, so those are the three different types of storage tiers that we have, access tiers that we have. Now, when it comes to data redundancy, also there are multiple options available to ensure that your data is safe and available, and multiple copies of the data is available. So we have redundancy locally, that is LRS, ZRS, GRS, and GEZRS. So what are these different options? Let's examine. Uh, so when we say LRS, there will always be three copies of your data in the same Azure region. So that is the basic nature of Azure storage. A minimum of three copies will always be available. Okay, so that means within that region, you will always have redundancy for your data. What is zone redundant storage? For zone redundant storage, it goes an additional step wherein your data is replicated to additional availability zones within the region. So that means it still remains within the region, but one copy of your data could be in one data center and another copy could be in a different data center. So that means you're protected from data center level failures. Okay. Now, if you want to protect your data across multiple regions, say one Azure region fails and you want access to a different, you want the data to be available in a different paired Azure region, you can go for a GRS. So that means a globally redundant storage. That means in addition to the 3 copies of the data that we have, normally you will have another 3 copies in a paired uh, physical region. Okay, in a different in a paired secondary Azure region. Okay, so that means the data is copied asynchronously. That is also one thing that we should keep in mind. For geo-zone redundant storage, how it works is it works in the same manner where the data will be replicated to the secondary zone. However, it will be put across three availability zones. That means it is protected against the data center failures in the secondary zone as well. Now, one more feature that you can have is you can have read access to these datas, read access to the secondary copies that is in GRS and GZRS. So, normal cases you don't have access to the data in the secondary region. The failover in case of a region failure, etc., is done by the platform itself. However, if you need read access to the data in the secondary region, you can choose for a read access GRS or read access GZRS. So that means you will have read access to the secondary copies as well. Okay, now let's see how to create a storage account from the Azure portal. So we will walk through the basic steps that are required to create a storage account. So we could either start from, no, if Azure storage account is showing up here on your dashboard, you can go ahead and directly create it from here. That is one way of doing it. Another option is you can, in the home page, you can go to create a resource and type storage account. You'll get this option, click create. Now you need to provide a resource group where you have to put your storage account. So I will use an existing resource group, that is Skynet Clouds. Storage account name, let me give a name. So just storage account name, a location. Then you need to select the performance tier, which could be standard or premium. So standard, as the name indicates, it uses hard disk for storing the data. Premium is used and it can be used for blob, queues, tables, files, all the type of services. Premium, on the other hand, is intended for unmanaged hard disk. However, we are not recommending unmanaged disk in Azure anymore. You are advised to use managed disk. So in this case, I'll just go with standard because I'm not going to use unmanaged disk. Account type, I'll select the storage V2. So as you can see, there are different options: blob storage, V1, V2, like we discussed earlier. I'll go with the latest version, V2. A replication type, what is a replication type? Again, the different type of replications that we discussed. Since this is a test account, I will go with LRS. If you want to go for higher redundancy for your environments, you can go with GRS or GZRS. Access tiers, here I'll keep it as hot tier because I am going to use it for live data. Then I will keep it as hot. If you want to, if you're planning to use the storage for storing data that is infrequently accessed, then you can select the cool tier. Next is networking. So here quite a lot of options are there. This is mainly for securely accessing your storage from internet or from selected networks. So by default it is public endpoint. That means you can access it from the internet and all networks. But if you want to restrict the access to selected networks, you can do that. Or if you want to even restrict it to specific resources using a private endpoint, you can do that as well and provide the private endpoint details. Here I will again go with the default option, that is public endpoint. Same with network routing. So there are two types of node routing, that is Microsoft Network Routing and Internet Routing. So the recommendation is to go with Microsoft Network Routing. So you can see the difference between both we here. So Microsoft Network Routing will help you to direct the traffic as fast as possible. So that is why it is recommended. So we can go to next section, that is data protection. So these are some additional mechanisms that are available here to protect your data from accidental deletion of data. So that means even if you delete it, the data will be available there for some more time if you enable the soft delete option. Versioning is another new feature which is in preview. That means you can maintain multiple versions of the data. So as you can see, it is grayed out here because it does not support the combination that I selected, because I selected East US and it is available only in a few regions. So that is why it is not enabled here. But again, I'll go with the default options that are shown here. Going to advance, this is again security of how the data is transmitted over the network and how it reaches the storage account, whether it has to be transferred over a secure network. So that is what we are choosing here. So that means you can make HTTPS only, we can only make HTTPS calls to access this. And similarly for file service also, you can use SMB, but it should also support encryption. So that is why there's a more secure mechanism. That is why we'll select enabled. Similarly, you can also restrict public access to the blobs inside your storage. So that means you can configure container ACLs to allow that access to your blob. So when it is disabled, then there will not be any kind of anonymous access uh, permitted. Okay. So here we'll go with all the default options available here, since it is just for a demo purpose. But when you deploy the environment in a live for storing live data, you would want to go with the highest level of security configuration possible. Okay. So Azure Files, again, if you're planning to use this for creating file shares with data having more than 100 terabytes, then you need to enable it. Um, Similarly, if you want to use it for data leak Gen 2, you need to enable this option. Uh, NFS-v3 is again another new feature. So you have to sign up for it. Since I have not signed up, it is in the grayed out status. If you go to tags, if you want to add any specific tags over here for billing purpose, you can add it. Review and create. This is as simple as it. Click on create. Okay, so the storage account deployment is in progress now. Now my deployment is completed. So if I go to resource here, I can see that my storage is created, and if I go to the services available, we can see the multiple services that are listed here. Say for example, a blob service, file service, tables, queues, all those are listed over here. So this is how you can deploy a storage account in Azure in a few simple steps. That's all we have for today. Thank you for being with us and watching this session. Thank you.